Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another podcast from Let's Watch the Golden Things. This is the Golden Things podcast. My name is Zane. I'll be your host today. And ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. This is going to be an exciting episode. We're going to have 6 items on the agenda. It's going to be a fun episode, so stick around. Please subscribe to the channel if you're here. I have been bringing this podcast. I brought 2 episodes to you guys in September, none in October, and now it's the beginning of November, and we're starting the month off strong. We're going to be talking again about 6 wonderful topics related to Iraq and Kurdistan. So let's go ahead and I'll tell you guys briefly about what we'll be talking about. The first thing, we will be talking about the U.S. elections. Yes, the United States presidential election 2020 is in one day on November 3rd. Today is November 2nd, 2020. So we'll be talking to you about that and a little bit about what the Iraqi and the Kurdish sentiment is. We'll also be talking to you guys about what happened on the 30th of September, the rocket attack towards Erbil. We'll be talking to you guys about the Iraq and Israel rumors of normalizing ties. Then we'll be covering what happened in Baghdad at the KDP party headquarters and the burning of the Kurdistan flag by pro-Hashd-Shabi protesters. We'll also be talking to you about what the Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein said and what he was informed about the U.S. decision to close the embassy in Baghdad. We actually had a podcast episode about this, so that'll be exciting. Last but not least, what happened 1 year ago on the 27th of October. Stick around at the end of the episode for that. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Golden Things podcast. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are here. Again, my name is Zane, and I am your host for this wonderful episode of the Golden Things podcast. Everything related to Iraq, to the Kurdistan region of Iraq, and all that goes on in the country and the region. So let's go ahead and start with the U.S. elections. I mean, that is just the biggest thing pretty much in the world right now. That is the headline throughout all countries right now, is who is ahead in the polls, who's going to win. Is it going to be Trump? Is it going to be Biden? The polls say Biden's going to win, but the polls said Hillary was going to win, and she lost, and Trump won. So very, very exciting times we are living in. Everyone's saying this is the most important election in modern times. But I want to bring this into a local perspective. What do Iraqis think? What do the people of Kurdistan think about the U.S. presidential election? Because it directly affects, if there's one country in the world that the U.S. presidential election affects more than many other countries, it is Iraq. And that is something that, shouldn't be understated, that Iraqis do have they have an opinion about the presidential election, unlike some other countries where it really doesn't matter. No, Iraqis are directly affected by who becomes a president. And recent polling has shown, I found a poll on Twitter that said 58% of Iraqis are for Trump. A majority for Trump. Less than, I believe it was like 40% of Iraqis would want to vote for Biden. And the other 20-ish% were undecided or were, had no opinion. So almost 60% of Iraqis for Trump, 58%. So what does that tell us? That tells us that the Iraqi people are appreciative of Donald Trump for his hardline stance against Iran and the Iranian government when it comes to its involvement in the country of Iraq with the funding of Shiite militias, the Hashd-Shabi, and various other sectarian militias that have gone around the country and, sparked more sectarian violence after the fall of the Islamic State, and have also, namely, you've probably been seeing in the news if you're listening from the Western world, the rocket attacks towards the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. So those are, directly responsible by these Shiite militias. So people in Iraq are appreciative more often than not of Donald Trump's efforts to limit Iran's influence in Iraq, because Iraqis, they want their own sovereignty, they want their own country, not to be controlled by another country. So, I think the Kurdish perspective and what I've heard from my, interactions with people here, because this podcast is being brought to you from Erbil. I don't know of any other podcast that covers things like this, and is being brought to you directly from inside the country. So people here from Kurdistan, some of them want Biden. This is like kind of the word on the street. People are interested in what Biden has to offer. I don't know why, that's the case, but what I've heard is that they say that he's going to be supporting a more federal system in Iraq, meaning like the U.S. is a federal republic where we have a state system. Well, Biden would be supportive of a federal state system in Iraq where you would have a Sunni region with Anbar and Nineveh. You would have a Shiite region starting from maybe like Diyala and going all the way down to Baghdad and then to Basra. And then you would have the Kurdistan region being its own federal state as the borders are currently demarcated and drawn. So people say in the KRG, I guess, that they want Biden for that reason. But I also know a lot of Kurds and the people of Kurdistan are supportive of Trump because, he's done a lot to combat the Iranian influence in this country. And believe me, it's not, the Iranian influence inside Iraq is not a good thing for this country. And it really never has been. So that's pretty much what we've got going. Again, the election is, in one day, like 24 hours. I mean, I can't believe that we're already here. 1 year ago, this channel, we posted our first vlog on the 3rd of November, 2019. And in 1 year, we've managed to create almost 100 vlog episodes. We've remained dedicated. So it's been really a cool ride. And, this podcast is just another kind of extension of our creativity here with Let's Watch the Golden Things. So let's move on. Let's talk about what happened right after we posted our last our last podcast episode. What on earth? How could the timing be any worse? Because we could have covered the incident. So basically what happened was around 8 p.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table with my wife, Paria, and my mom, who had flown in from Texas, and we heard some like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, what is that? That kind of sounded like maybe somebody dropped something up on the roof, or, something fell down, a big thing fell in the street. Well, I open my phone and Twitter starts going bzz, 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 and it says like rockets, loud explosions in Erbil, potential rocket attack against the Erbil International Airport. And I was like, oh my gosh, you have got to be kidding me. Not again. Because it seems like every time my mom shows up here, there's like a rocket attack. Last time she was here in the beginning of the year from December to January, and we had the Qasem Soleimani assassination and, the subsequent missile attacks from Iran. And then this time she comes in, end of September, October, and Hash the Shabby, pro-Iranian groups, although they say they didn't do it. Someone did it, but they shot rockets at Erbil, and they landed in between, Mahmoud and the Erbil International Airport. I mean, there's a lot of space between there, and it's not really clear there. I didn't really see, any like location GPS wise where exactly the rockets landed, but they landed near the airport apparently, and they were shot from Nineveh. They were shot from, the Nineveh governorate, which is like towards kind of the west of here, of Erbil. And this was an attempt from whoever shot these rockets, be it pro-Iranian militias or, independent actors paid by somebody to do this. Basically, this was to foment instability and confusion and further chaos within, back in the end of September, we were having a lot of discussion about the U.S. closing the embassy in Baghdad, and relocating everything to Erbil. So I think basically the general idea of that attack was to scare the people Kurdistan, and to scare the international community, mainly the U.S., that, hey, look, even if you try to bring everyone to Erbil, you're not going to be safe. We're not going to leave you alone. Just because you take your, diplomatic personnel out of Baghdad doesn't mean that we can't target you in Erbil, even though Erbil is the safest place in all of Iraq, and there are no sectarian militias here, but we can still shoot rockets at you from federal Iraq. That just shows you how close we are to federal Iraq. So, that happened right after we released our last podcast episode on the 30th of September, where we talked about the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad moving to Erbil. So, that was quite interesting. We were a little bit concerned that maybe there'd be more rockets, maybe there would be some retaliatory attacks from the U.S. or from any coalition forces. You just don't know really what could happen in a second here. You could be fine and dandy on your way to work, and then next thing you know, we're on the brink of war with another country. So that was pretty interesting. That happened back in the 30th of September. Again, we didn't make any podcast episodes between then and now. So this is, I'm pretty much trying to cover everything that happened Iraq-wise, Kurdistan-wise, in October. And let's go ahead and move on to the rumors. This was around the 20th of October. Rumors of Iraq and Israel normalizing ties. This comes in the wake of Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates normalizing ties with the state of Israel, the Jewish state. And this, these two moves from Bahrain and the UAE were unprecedented since, pretty much since the 21st century. I mean, no one thought that there was going to be any more peace with Israel. And U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration have successfully negotiated peace with Israel and these two countries, and that has spurred some rumors that Iraq, yes, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen, that Iraq is going to normalize ties with Israel. Although I find this to be a complete long shot and totally something that, is just beyond me. Like, I just don't see that happening at all. It has been rumored, and they said in the news and the Twitter gossip and, all the people that are Iraq experts said that, PM Mustafa Kadhimi was going to go to the UK, meet with Boris Johnson, and then he was going to talk about normalizing ties with Israel. I just don't see it as at this moment in time, it's just not realistic. It's just not something that's feasible. And it's not something that makes sense at all. Well, I mean, an Israeli cannot go to Baghdad safely. I mean, if someone found out they were, from Tel Aviv or from Jerusalem, I mean, it would be a nightmare for them in Baghdad. I mean, yes, maybe majority of the people would be happy and welcome them, but we do have these militia elements. We do have, I'm so sorry, Baghdad, but a lot of instability, lawlessness, and a lot of unpredictability in the federal Iraqi region, and I'm not trying to say anything bad towards our neighbors to the south, but, that's just the truth, it's just not something realistic. I mean, let's say like the Kurdistan region wanted to open an Israeli consulate, or was welcome to opening an Israeli consulate, and then Israel was like, okay, yeah, we'd love to open a consulate in Erbil. That would be totally feasible, plausible, realistic, because this place is safe, open. It is not, a place where an Israeli would be targeted at all. Guaranteed 100%. I mean, I could, make that guarantee and firmly stand to it that, this would be realistic if it was the Kurdistan region. But, federal Iraq normalizing ties with Israel, I don't know if this was just like something that someone pushed as a narrative just to, get a bunch of likes and retweets. But, again, this is just not something that's going to happen anytime soon, especially with Iran in the picture in Iraq. As you guys, if you've listened to my other episodes, you kind of maybe starting to understand, if you didn't before, the extent that Iran has embedded itself inside federal Iraq and inside Iraqi politics and inside, pretty much every aspect of the political sector in Iraq, all the way up to the parliament. So again, just something that's not really realistic. I understand Mustafa Kadhimi might be, open-minded, and he might want in a more perfect world, he might want to pull such move. But right now, it's just not going to happen. Just not realistic. So let's move right along to the fourth agenda item. On the 17th of October, a few days before we heard about these rumors about Iraq and Israel normalizing ties, we had pro-Hashd al-Shabi protesters riot and loot and burn a KDP party headquarters office in Baghdad, and subsequently, disrespectfully, disgracefully, something I was not happy to see, these protesters burned the Kurdistan flag in Baghdad. And this came after Kurdish senior official Hoshyar Zebari accused pro-Iranian groups of carrying out those rocket attacks that we've been hearing about on U.S. facilities in the Green Zone. So basically, a bunch of protesters, I'll try to play the clip here. But basically, these protesters, what they did was, as you saw, they burned, the flag, and this was a huge disrespect towards the Kurdistan region, which has been trying to increase ties with Baghdad, trying to increase cooperation with the federal Iraqi government, trying to, normalize relations further, because there was a lot of discord between federal Iraq and the Kurdistan region after the 2017 independence referendum that the Kurdistan regional government held, and everyone voted to be independent. 92% voted to be independent from Iraq. So there was a lot of discord, but ties have been getting better in recent times. And then, all of a sudden, boom, we see out of nowhere, the Kurdistan flag being burned in Baghdad, being stepped on. And, that was a big shock. I think it came, and people were very upset here. And some helicopters here in Erbil from EIA, the Erbil International Airport, they flew around the city with the Kurdistan flag after this, which I thought was really cool. And, they said, look, this is our flag, this is our land, these are our people. I'll try to play the clip here.
ناویت شیرین کردستان کردا ام دیت پارزی جدست نمردا ناویت شیرین کردستان کردا ام دیت پارزی جدست نمردا. So as you just saw, the helicopter, it flew around over the citadel and proudly displayed the Kurdistan flag after it was burned in Baghdad. And actually, it's the beginning of November. We haven't really heard much since then. There was condemnation from all sides about this, about the attack on the KDP headquarters office, about the burning of the flag. I believe even Mike Pompeo said that they condemned the attack. And, of course, the Kurdish politicians condemned the attack. So, yeah, I was a little bit worried there might be some increase in tension between the KRG and federal Iraq, but it turns out nothing really came of it, and everything, cooler heads prevailed. As I mentioned, it's the beginning of November, and we haven't really heard much since then, but that was kind of a significant event. It definitely, social media channels were definitely talking about that quite a bit when the Kurdistan flag was being burned and stepped on in Baghdad. So let's move right along to our fifth subject. We got, after this, we have one more, so stick around for that. We'll be telling you what happened pretty much 1 year ago, on the 27th of October, in relation to the Islamic State. So our fifth topic, the Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein
has reportedly been informed that the decision to close the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad has been taken by Washington, but it's on hold. So what does that mean? What does that tell us? What does that mean? It's on hold. Is the U.S. just, not really comfortable right now? I mean, it seems like, in all honesty, that from my understanding here, like, let's look at the, from the insider perspective here, inside Iraq, the embassy has been closed since January, the 1st of January, since the attack in late December, where these, probably the same people who burned the Kurdistan flag in the middle of October 2020 in Baghdad, probably the same type people were the ones who committed the attack on the U.S. Embassy in late December. I believe it was the 31st of December. So that same group of people were the reason why the U.S. Embassy has been closed. I mean, after that attack, things didn't really open up, and then we had, Qasem Soleimani was killed. And then we had the, surface-to-surface missile attack from Iran at U.S. and coalition facilities inside Iraq, including here in Erbil. We did have some missiles land near the Erbil International Airport in early January. I believe it was the 9th or the morning of the 9th. And, the embassy in Baghdad has been closed since then. So, anyone who wants to get anything done as a U.S. citizen in Baghdad, just not happening. So pretty much, U.S. Ambassador Matthew Tueller has just been sitting around in Baghdad in a closed embassy since January. And then, in September, we heard all this rumor, and as we mentioned in our podcast, our 2 previous episodes, that everything's coming to Erbil, right? That they're going to move all consular services to Erbil and potentially, relocate the embassy, maybe temporarily or permanently, to Erbil. This is just another confirmation from the social media world. Mid-October, hearing on Twitter that Fuad Hussein, Iraqi foreign minister, has been informed that the decision, was taken. So essentially Washington has said, yes, we're going to close the embassy, but we're just waiting for now. We just are going to wait for the right time to close it and the right time to, relocate everything to Erbil. And, I already told you guys my stance on this. I mean, it makes absolute perfect sense given the state the federal Iraq is in. Again, no offense to our southern neighbor, all right? I'm not trying to, talk bad about anybody here, but, it just makes sense because federal Iraq is just not safe for Americans. It's just really not the right place to be at this moment in time. And with the U.S. election coming up, and if Donald Trump is reelected, of course, the hardline stance will continue against Iran. And that, will just further increase the instability inside federal Iraq. Of course, if the Democrats win, Joe Biden is elected president, we will see a lot of rapprochement, I guess you would say. You would kind of probably see more of the Obama era diplomacy where the Democrats would try to reinstate the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, which, Donald Trump, he canceled that. So it would probably get better in a sense between U.S. and Iran ties, or not really ties, but the tension would kind of dissipate if the U.S. was to say, oh, look, we're sorry for the 4 years of what Trump did, but let's go back to our Obama era policy. We'll appease you and we'll give you guys a bunch of cash. But again, that would probably foment more instability, maybe not between the U.S. and Iran, but here in Iraq, because that would mean that Iran would have more money from the U.S., they would have more cash, and they would just probably be using it on Hezbollah, on, IRGC operations, and other, funneling money to more, terrorist groups and to more militias here. So let's move on, guys, to our last subject. And I want to finish the podcast today talking to you guys about what happened on the 27th of October, a glorious day back in 2019. Donald Trump came out and said this.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead.
Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. That's right. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was killed in Idlib, Syria on the 27th of October, 2019. So that was 1 month ago. 1 year ago, just a few days ago in the end of October. And that was a great day. Back in 2017, we saw Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, lead the charge, taking 30% of federal Iraq's territory, under the black flag of the Islamic State. And, he announced the capital of the Islamic State from the Iraqi city, the second largest city of Mosul. And, that was a scary time in the world. I remember, people were freaked out. I mean, people all the way in the U.S. were scared. And, no one really felt safe that the Islamic State controlled so much of actual dirt on the earth, right? I mean, this was a lot of territory. Like millions of people lived under their rule, stretching from western Iraq all the way into eastern and, central Syria into Raqqa. So, it's really good that he's dead. It's been a year. He's still dead. I mean, he's not coming back. We haven't seen much from the Islamic State. We've seen a little bit more sporadic attacks here in Iraq as of late. We've seen some kind of what you call, I guess, the lone wolf type stuff with IEDs and targeting, international convoys. Some United Nations vehicles have been targeted in the Nineveh Governorate. But, I mean, you just haven't seen what we saw 3 years ago in 2017, 2016 with the Islamic State. So really good news. I'm happy that he's dead, obviously. I mean, nobody wants terrorists to be alive. All terrorists should go away and die so that they, never be terrorists again and leave us in peace. So that's going to do it, guys, for this episode of the Golden Things podcast. I hope this wasn't too long. I wanted to cover all these topics because we didn't do a episode last month, but I think this was kind of cool to start off the month and kind of, take a look back at what happened in the month of October. And of course, guys, this episode is brought to you from Erbil. So, what we're giving you isn't, from a U.S., media perspective. I mean, this is local news being talked about by local, from the local perspective here in Iraq. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please like this video, like this episode, subscribe to the Golden Things. Let's watch the Golden Things and give us your feedback. Let me know your comments. Did you enjoy this? Was it too long? Did I talk too much? Am I misinformed? Did I say anything that was incorrect? I'd really appreciate your feedback. And it would mean a lot to me so that I can make these podcasts episodes, a little bit better in the future. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the third episode of the Golden Things podcast. Again, my name is Zane, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this video from Let's Watch the Golden Things, and we'll see you in the next one, y'all. And if you made it this far, let me get a yeehaw, just Texas style there. All right, y'all, take care now.